Welcome to the QB Chronicles, an SMU football podcast with Garrett Gilbert and Kyle Padron. Join former SMU quarterbacks Garrett and Kyle as they break down each week's game, offering insights from their own experiences on the field. In addition to game analysis, we'll also bring you special episodes featuring interviews with past and present SMU players, sharing their stories and perspectives. Whether you're a diehard Mustang fan or just love football, this podcast is your go-to source for all things SMU football. Pony up!
Welcome back to another edition of the QB Chronicles presented by 1911. I'm Kyle Padron, played quarterback from 2009, 2011, and joined by world traveler, apparently, my friend and colleague, Garrett Gilbert.
Yeah, that's me. Kyle, it's good to be back on, man. I want to apologize to everyone about the current announcements and any to follow, as I am just getting back from a little family trip to Kiowa Island, which was a blast. Played some horrible golf at the Ocean Course, and now I'm headed down to San Antonio for a little work retreat. So I'm going to play some more golf down there. And my handicap, my scores are not reflecting how much golf I'm playing, unfortunately. So, but anyway, apologies to everyone listening for the noise and the continued noise throughout this episode.
We'll fight through it. There will be some adversity, but we will overcome. Much like our ponies have done throughout the year. Not too much adversity this week. Our guys went out to Palo Alto and played the Stanford Cardinal. Dominated Stanford really start to finish, even from the opening play. But 40-10 victory out in California. Love to get your take on it. It's some things to clean up, but love to get your thoughts on the game.
All right, first things first. Football starts way too late on the East Coast. That's my first takeaway from the game. Staying up late last night to watch that and the UT game. Boy, that was I was a little tired this morning waking up. Secondly, we've talked a lot this year, Kyle, about winning and being able to coach from it, like not playing a perfect game. And I thought last night, not to be nitpicky, but I thought last night was a perfect example of that. Like, you look at the scoreboard, you don't watch the game. It's 40-10. That was an awesome victory for SMU. And it was on the road, conference game against a team that we talked about, had been competitive, and we outright dominated them on the scoreboard. However, what I saw was, a team that left 24 points out on the board. Our favorite player, our kicker, missed a field goal. We left some opportunities out there. We had a lot of penalties, and I think that is got to be a positive for the coaches. They can come in today now on Sunday, and sure, it's a good job. You 24-hour rule, you can celebrate and do all that sort of stuff, and But I think there was a lot to learn from there. And I think penalties were the first thing. I think, the offense without Burchard in there, suspended for the first half of the game, looked a little bit clunky, to be honest with you. I know he scored 21 points, but those came on huge plays. It didn't feel like we were sustaining drives really. All in all, a great win. Don't want to take anything away from that, but I think it'll be nice for the coaching staff to be able to go in today and early this next week and find some stuff to improve upon.
Yeah, you mentioned the penalties. 10 penalties, 100 yards in total for penalty yardage. Turnovers, we had 2 turnovers, I think we had 3 total. Kevin threw an interception and then 2 lost fumbles. I think we had 3 fumbles in total, but lost 2. Some punt return miscues. Obviously, you mentioned the missed kick with Colin. Some things to clean up. I think it is going to be a positive to, obviously correcting mistakes after a win is always more fun than correcting mistakes after a loss. And, went in, handled business. We were, 2 touchdown, almost 3 touchdown favorites going into this. So nothing too surprising on the field, but, stat lines, 500 yards of offense, put up 40 points, 322 in the air for Kevin, 180 on the ground, kind of by committee. Had a lot of guys get carries last night, but Kevin was 17 for 27, 322, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then, like I said, by committee last night in the backfield. But Burchard had 8 for 67, Roderick had 10 for 50, and LJ Johnson had 9 for 45 and 2 touchdowns. So we got some good looks. That receivers played well, made big plays. Obviously, opening play of the game, Moochie goes on a slant, takes it 87 yards to get the points. Really light up the scoreboard after the first play of the game. The penalties, mentioned that already, got to clean those up, and then the turnovers. You go into traveling to Duke next week, a 6-1 Duke team. We got to take care of the football and winning the turnover battle week to week as we get later in the season, playing these more competitive games, specifically on the road against good opponents. We've got to take care of the football and make sure we're just being efficient on offense and not getting behind the sticks with penalties and making sure we're tucking the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're not gonna win. You're not gonna win many of the games we have left against teams with that have found ways to win, losing the turnover battle. That being said, the positives from the game last night, I thought our defense was dominant. Didn't really ever give Stanford any life whatsoever on offense. I thought they played great all across the board. Secondary played great, took advantage of errant throws. Defensive line was dominant and put pressure on them. And our linebackers played great because they were freed up by the way our defensive line played. So I thought that was a huge positive. You and I talked a little bit last week about spreading the ball around and being able to have different guys make plays. And I thought, with Burchard out last night in the first half, that was a good example of that. The receiving core continued to excel across the board. I mean, our leading receiver had 4 catches. We had 2 guys with 4 catches, Keyshawn Smith and Jake Bailey. Keyshawn obviously had the long touchdown. And then outside of that, it was kind of, 1 catch, 2 catch, 2 catch, 2 catch, 2 catch for, 8 different receivers caught passes. And I thought that was great. Another sign of who do you stop on this offense? Who do you try to take away? Certainly Burchard is going to be at the very top of that list every week. But behind that, okay, RJ, sure. He only has 2 catches, but he slips behind the defense and catches a long touchdown. And then Moochie's open on a slant route on an RPO on the first play of the game. I mean, this, if we can continue to spread the ball around and kind of have a, as you said, by committee approach to both the running and passing games, this offense is going to, it gives Coach Lashley just some, a ton of creativity, and you're going to start to see him trust, put those guys in position to make plays, and it doesn't have to be the same guy every week. Next week you saw Moochie catch a pass and go for 87 yards. Next week that might be Jordan Hudson because he's shown that he can do it. And then if you're a defense, you say, okay, who do we help? Who do we put a safety on top of? And how do we stop the run? So I think those are some definitely big positives to continue to look at going forward. All in all, a great win for SMU on the road. We're going to get ready to go back on the road again to Duke next week and play, like you said, a good team who just beat Florida State in a tight ball game.
You mentioned the defense. I want to point out a couple of things. 173 yards. Stanford's not a incredibly efficient ball club in a passing game, but holding them under 200 yards passing. And the stat I thought was pretty amazing was we held them to 33 yards rushing total for the entire game, which I know they got behind early and probably had throw the ball and take away the running game a little bit, make them a little bit more one-dimensional. But 33 yards on the ground for a game for our defense to play that, to be that stout and prevent them from picking up really what their strength would be on the rushing side. I thought we did a great job on defense. Shout out to Deuce Harmon, Isaiah Naquobia, both had interceptions last night, great plays. And again, just up, while there were a lot of mistakes worth correcting, it'd be great to see the film on that for our guys. Really a dominant win on the road. Wish the environment was better for both Stanford and our guys. That's just kind of a product of where the football program is for Stanford at the moment. But a great way. We're 3-0 in conference, 6-1 total. We've mentioned this several weeks now, but everything's out front. And really kind of get into kind of the meat of the schedule, the last 5 games here. And, the next one with Duke's going to be a big game. Who is your player of the game this week?
I think the defensive, if I have to give a second one, I think it's Kevin, despite the interception. But I think really the player of the game is the defensive unit as a whole. I thought they, we just touched on all the accolades from the game last night, but I thought they played great across the board, and I think they deserve it. Certainly we're quarterbacks and we like talking offense, but I think the defense did a great job last night. And they're deserving of the highest accolade QB Chronicles can give out.
Yeah, I like that.
Which I don't know how high that accolade
Yeah,
actually is.
it's probably still pretty low relative, but shout out to the defense. I think anytime we can recognize the defense, I know we're offensive minded, both playing quarterback when we played, but I think it's important to acknowledge the efforts of the defense this week, but over the entire year. They've been playing great football season long, and we'll need to continue to do so. But it's great they get the recognition they deserve, and just. I was thinking while you were talking, it's nice to see us be favored in a game, to know that we've got, 16, 17 points that we're favored by, but then to go do what we're expected to do and go punish somebody. It's something that's been missing from the program for a long time. And it's nice to not only go win the games you're supposed to win, but absolutely blow people out in the way that these guys have done all season long. It's getting fun, and it's great to see these guys playing at such a high level and doing what they're supposed to do. But just I think I've mentioned this every week so far, but it's a great time to be around the program, and I'm excited to see what they can continue to do as they move forward and progress this season. Before we move on, I'll give my Padron shot of the game real quick. Kevin Jennings played a great game, 3 touchdowns, but the one that I love the most, and it really, makes me think about June, where he landed the football, press coverage, got Keyshawn Smith on a 9 route, drops in the bucket 37-39, like June used to tell us in press coverage. But Keyshawn did a great job, took an outside release, got on top of the defender, stacks the defender, and then Kevin throws a perfect ball over the outside left shoulder there. Just executed extremely well. Keyshawn, great release, stacks the defender, then Kevin drops a dime over his shoulder. Just a great play all around. But Kevin Jennings, 45-yard touchdown pass. Keyshawn Smith is the Padron shot of the game this week against Stanford.
Talk about real fast. I agree. I thought that was made. I liked the certainly the first play of the game was awesome. Exciting. If you're looking at there was 4 plays that stuck out in my mind, and not to steal the Padron shot of the game but the first touchdown was great, catch and run. Was that one or the RJ touchdown second? I think our Keyshawn was second, and then the touchdown to RJ I thought was great because it showed Kevin's ability to extend plays and then make a play. And like I said, RJ slipped on the defense. And then there was another play in that first quarter where Kevin was rolling out to the right on a boot, kind of became a runner, got the defense up, and just kind of flipped. It was literally just a flip over 3 guys' head to RJ. And I thought that was another fun one, just to show what the dynamic that he brings to the offense. But I totally agree that was my favorite one. Can you talk about, you mentioned the 37-39 versus press. Talk about, for the listeners, what we're thinking as quarterbacks when we're throwing those goal balls.
Yeah, so June used to teach, and this is kind of, Garrett and I have both experienced this, but with off coverage, June's theory was that, receivers we're going to try and drop that ball in the bucket at 44-46 with off coverage. There's nothing inhibiting the route runner receiver from getting down the field. In press coverage, there's likely going to be some sort of a fight or battle at the line. And with the quarterback's timing and our footwork, we're 3 steps in hitch, 1, 2, 3 hitch, the ball's gone. With press coverage, there's likely going to be some sort of inhibiting factor, whether defenders holding, maybe a little slower, more patient release by Keyshawn. Like this one, he kind of took an outside, just ducked the shoulder down and got on top. But there's little nuances with timing, whether it's off coverage or press coverage. And that's why there's a little bit of a discrepancy between 44 and 46 to off coverage, or 37 to 39 yards dropping in the bucket versus press coverage.
Yeah. I thought that was something that June taught me when I first got to SMU that I hadn't done before. I hadn't thought of before, but it's crazy how often that theory held true.
Yeah, it's kind of like stuck in my brain watching it on film, where he's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 33, 34, 35, 36.
Perfect. Yep, that's exactly right.
Some of them were, maybe 39 and a half, 40, but he found a way to tell the truth attractively and say, yeah, it's 37 to 39.
That's exactly right. Let's take a quick little trip around college football. Obviously, we talked about the Texas game. That was probably the biggest game of the weekend, but you had some other games too. I think maybe the negative and the positive of the 12-team playoff is like this loss. What does it do for Texas's playoff chances? I mean, I think it takes them from like by way of ESPN's projections, it takes them from like 96 to 88 or something like that. I mean, they're right in there still, and I think they were dominated last night like we hadn't seen them dominated early this year. And Georgia kind of impose their will, and that Alabama game maybe looks like an outlier now more than the fall of Georgia, so to speak. But they won that game going away even with the turnovers by Beck, and so I thought that was an impressive performance by them. Texas's offense couldn't do much, and the Georgia defense looked like they were out for blood last night.
Yeah, their defensive line seemed like everybody was back healthy, and I don't know what you do outside of, just put it in two tight ends and try and hold tight and run two-man
hope for the best. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
they were impressive.
Yeah, protect Quinn or Arch, but it's I think they tried to figure out a little bit in the second half, but that defensive front was pretty nasty all night and wreaked havoc on the UT offense. BYU gets to 7-0, late touchdown. A great
keep
play.
Rooting for them, SMU fans. Keep rooting for them.
Big BYU fans here. Miami escapes Louisville. I was watching that one closely.
They continue to live dangerously and find a way to win. We'd like to obviously see them maybe lose one down the stretch, and I don't know how the tiebreakers work in the ACC. Maybe that's something we do a little research on this week, but not to get ahead of ourselves because we're very much in one-week seasons. But maybe we do a little research and go through the tiebreaker scenarios at some point in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we got to keep handling business.
Yeah, you mentioned the 12-team playoff. Alabama takes their second loss to Tennessee. Imagine, they'll probably still have an outside chance with two losses if they went out going forward. But if they have another loss, the first year of the 12-team playoff will be without Alabama,
which would be shocking. Yeah, I agree. That'll be interesting to watch. And now you've got just to kind of segue into next week. Now you've got two teams sitting at the top of the SEC in LSU and A&M, with only two teams in the SEC in conference play in the SEC without losses. So that'll be an interesting one to tune into. Obviously, we pay attention to teams around Texas. To watch LSU play A&M. UT goes to play giant killer Vanderbilt.
Yep, ranked Vanderbilt, number 25 in the country.
How about that? And then there's a couple more ranked games. Illinois, Oregon, I think will be interesting. I got a buddy who used to coach at SMU by the name of Justin Stepp, who's now coaching at Illinois, so it's been fun to watch them. And then last but not least, I wanted to talk to you about this. Have you heard of this this Army-Navy scenario floating around?
I have. Go ahead and explain that.
So this may be far-fetched, but let's say Army and Navy, who are both undefeated right now, manage to beat Notre Dame and go undefeated throughout the course of the season. So they'll match up in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. The winner would likely be the highest. What are we calling them now? Is that the group of five still? I mean, I don't know what you call that, those conferences that are not in the power conference. But if Army or Navy wins that game undefeated, they're probably the highest non-power conference team. So they're probably getting into the playoff. Whoever wins that game probably gets into the playoff. Army and Navy turn around and play what amounts to an exhibition game the following week. So there is a scenario in which, let's say, Navy beats Army the first time, and then the following week Army goes out and beats Navy, and the playoff has already been announced. What happens then? And I think maybe far-fetched with them both having to play Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's playing better football now. But I am going to be paying attention to that, I think that's a fun little storyline to see. I mean, that place is going to be that place is going to be rocking for the American Conference Championship game if they can.
To be quite honest, I'm kind of hoping that they both knock off Notre Dame and that comes to fruition. I think it'd be kind of interesting to follow along and see what the committee does.
I don't think the committee they think through most scenarios. I'm not sure they thought through an undefeated Army-Navy.
I never realized that it was an exhibition game, essentially.
Well, I don't think I realized it either up until now. I mean, it's it always seemed like it. I mean, obviously it matters, but it always seemed like it mattered. But it was just kind of its own week. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I'm curious what'll shake loose there.
They're both in the top 25 as well. I think I didn't write it down, but I saw that they were both 23, 25. just snuck into the top 25 this week. So I'd be curious when the last time, and maybe we'll, have similar to an Aflac trivia question, see if we can pull some research here and get the last week Army and Navy were both top 25.
We'll have that ready for you guys next episode.
The only other game I was going to mention was Clemson. I mean, they seem to be, I think we mentioned them a couple weeks ago, but took it on the chin the first week of the year against Georgia, and Dabo seemingly got them rolling. So keeping tabs on other ACC opponents, but potentially future opponents as well. But Clemson, they seem to have to, be back on the right track, and could be dangerous and potentially playoff implications in that conference championship.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're one to keep an eye on. I mean, they had a bad half of football against Georgia. That was a tight game at halftime, and then Georgia kind of blew them out in the second half. And it'll be Clemson's they haven't been themselves for the past 3 years, but it's not like this team has completely fallen off. So I'm interested, especially with them being in our conference. I think that's going to be a fun one to watch the rest of the way.
You mentioned LSU, A&M, Texas plays Vanderbilt, Missouri at Alabama, number 21 versus number 15, number 12 Notre Dame at number 24 Navy next week, and then number 20 Illinois at number 1 Oregon were the ranked matchups I saw. So
yeah, say what you want about NIL and conference realignment, but we're getting a lot of fun ranked team matchups late in the season, almost every single week. And so and they're between teams that I don't know what Vanderbilt's NIL program looks like, or Illinois, but we're seeing maybe some more parity than we have in the past, and I think that's an exciting thing for college football. So
yeah, couldn't be better for college football than to see different teams getting a chance, more teams getting a chance come December, late December, and into January. But certainly next 5 weeks are going to be fun. Excited. We'll be back with potentially a breakdown of SMU Duke later this week after you get back from your retreat.
That's right. Yeah, number 22 SMU going to Durham to play Duke. We will get into a preview later this week, but I just checked the line. We opened as 11.5-point favorites. So we talked about this, but ideally, let's go have another repeat of last weekend where we're 2 touchdown favorites and we go step on Duke's throat early and finish them off. Yeah, KP, enjoyed it, man. Everyone who's listening or watching, apologies again for the noise. Got to get the pot in though.
Yep, got to do it. Awesome, GG. Safe travels, amigo, and we'll talk soon. Pony up.
Pony up.